Hey, beautiful soul. Have you ever felt like traditional goal setting just doesn't work for you? Like you're forcing yourself into someone else's blueprint, or maybe you've even outlined your goals and you're pushing them forward, but something just doesn't feel right. It feels like there's so much effort going in with little return. This whole process is leaving you drained and questioning your potential. Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, I'm diving into the top 3 things I used to plan my most aligned and abundant 2025. These are the tools that help me go from feeling overwhelmed to thriving in my own unique flow, and they just might unlock clarity and confidence that you've been craving in your business as well. I am so excited to dive into today's episode because we're going to be talking about setting intentions and visioning for 2025. If you're ready to start planning your year in a way that actually feels good, then keep listening. You're listening to the Aligned and Magnetic podcast with Lauren Ashley, certified coach and mindset queen. Hey loves, welcome back to another episode of the Aligned and Magnetic podcast. I am so stoked to be here. I'm testing out a new video recording situationship. I really hope this works out because this is going to be a great episode. I don't know what could possibly go wrong, but we're going to do our best to have a successful episode. So, hi, welcome to 2025. What the heck? December was crazy for me. Okay, so oh my God, where do I even start? I had been posting episodes up until mid-December, and then my life just completely lifed in the best way possible. We finished our year traveling a lot. In November, we were away for birthday parties in Ottawa, came back for a couple days, and then we were off to Mexico for 11 days. And then we ended up on a red-eye flight because our flight was delayed, and then we got back and we were home for like 4 days, and my sister was here, and then Christmas festivities were starting, and then we packed up all of our dogs and our cat, and we drove down 7 hours to Niagara. We left our dogs there. Everyone got a dog. So my dad and my brother and my brother's girlfriend had Chispa. My mom took Lola and my sister took Little Bear. And the cat did her own thing. We celebrated my birthday. The next day we took off on the 24th to go to Vegas. We were in Vegas for about 6 days, saw all of her family. And then we came back to Niagara, got sick, spent time with my family. Oh my God, after New Year's was such a crazy day. We didn't even do much on New Year's Eve because we were so tired. We literally stayed in and karaoke'd with my family. New Year's Day, my poor mom, that was the only day that we had available to go and see her and celebrate the holidays with her, and she got the worst of us. I was falling over at the table, like I couldn't even anymore because it was such a crazy hectic time. We actually ended up cutting our trip short. We were in Niagara. We were supposed to be there until the second week of January. Alexis and I were like, okay, we're done. We overestimated the amount of energy that we would have, and obviously we wanted to stay longer and spend more time with my family, but it just doesn't make sense when you are absolutely drained. They don't get the best of you. Nobody gets the best of you. So we came home early, and I took the first week of January off, which was so nice. I'm going to tell you more about that week off. I'm just feeling super energized and ready. So thank you for your patience. I haven't put out an episode since mid-December. I had episodes that were ready to go, but if you have listened to the podcast at all, I think I've mentioned before, I really like to be present when I'm away because I don't get to see family and friends that often. So thank you for waiting, and I'm super excited to bring you today's episode, particularly because the new year is such a great opportunity to slow down and to reflect and set intentions. And I know for me, over the past 7 years as a business owner, there have been years where I planned so much and did none of it, or like a couple things. There have been years where I didn't plan at all and just went with the flow. And there have been years where I've been so busy and so stressed that I didn't have the mental capacity to even slow down. When you're an entrepreneur and you don't feel stable in yourself, it can create a lot of stress. Even if everything around you is fine, you're still going to think that things are not fine, and you're still going to kind of create a reality where you don't feel fine, even though everything's fine. I hope that makes sense. But that's something that I've navigated as well. So I want to take today's episode to bring grounding to you no matter where you're at, because I polled my audience on Instagram and I asked, how are you feeling for the new year? And it was about 40% to 60% division. The 40% were like, I'm tired. Like, I'm so tired. And the 60% were like, I'm ready to go. No matter where you're at, whether you're feeling tired or you're feeling really ready to take on the year, this is a must listen to episode. So make sure that you complete the episode, because I'm going to highlight 3 things that female entrepreneurs have to be looking at to plan their year. And it's going to bring you some insight to help set you up for success. It's not out yet, but I'm coming out with an article soon on the 7 tips to create fail-proof business goals in 2025. The reason I say fail-proof is because a lot of the time, working with entrepreneurs and leaders, they'll say they want one thing at the beginning of the year, and then we reach a point where it feels like things aren't working out in the way that we thought they would, or we're just not seeing the fruits of our labor. We're not seeing what we expected to see. Oftentimes, this is where entrepreneurs will quit and find something else, or they will develop shiny object syndrome and change the plan. And when you change the plan constantly, you are going to struggle to see results, because it's not about developing a different, better strategy. Like, yes, there's always things that you can do to tweak your strategy, to optimize your strategy. And if you need help with this, this is something I'm really good at. My motivation in human design is all about improving things and making things the best they can be. I have high standards. If you need support with identifying how you can make things better, how you can optimize, how you can take what you're doing and leverage it rather than just continue to push, we could have a strategy session and discuss ideas. I don't remember what I was saying, so I'm just going to start with what I have written in my notes. So I wanted to say, going back to Mexico this year was so good for me, so good for my soul. Something that I've really realized as an overachiever, a high achiever, is how much I discredit the things that I've built and the things that I've created and how amazing my life is. It wasn't until Mexico that I really got the mirror put in front of me. Our neighbor, who I love, our neighbors are so amazing, was like, you know, you girls live a really epic life. It was in that moment that I was like, yeah, he's right. We do live an epic life, you know. In our 30s, we have a vacation home in Mexico. We're living in Montreal. We have land in Mexico that we are going to develop at some point. I'm always so critical of the things that I don't have and judge myself for certain things. And I just want to say this because if I'm doing it, you might be doing that as well. And something that has really just become clear to me is that we can't do everything in one year. We can't have everything that we want in one year. So what we've got to do, and this is going to be one of the things that we talk about today, is look to all the things we did accomplish. Look at all the things that we did do, even if it wasn't in the plans. This past year went amazing in so many ways and also didn't go as expected in other ways. I really was expecting the latter half of the year to go differently. I struggled with our move. Mentally, I struggled for the first, I would say, 2 to 3 months here back in Canada, managing our property down in Mexico and also adapting to our new life and our new just way of living and all of that stuff here. So that was a part. And then I got my shit together and saw lots of progress. I'm going to share with you the wins that I've identified for 2024. Because certain things weren't like expected or anticipated, sometimes what I do is I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't take up space in my life because I didn't plan it. Like, Our move to Montreal was planned-ish. We had been talking about moving for a while. But once it came fast. It was planned, but not really. We spent probably a month getting the house ready, packing our shit and leaving. And what I'm learning is that just because things can happen quickly and just because we got here quickly doesn't mean that it doesn't take time for me to integrate. So I'm jumping right into the episode, but it took me a long time once I got here to really ground into being here and to feel confident with the decision that I had made. I'll get more into that in a minute, but I just wanted to share this really divine thing that happened when I was in Mexico, and it was a really big realization, and I feel like I need to share it with you because we look so much at the physical reality of things, and we look at things like time and limitation, and I want to share this story with you just as a reminder that we are quantum beings and that things are always working out for our divine existence. So I had a human design reading in Mexico. When I go back to Mexico, I do human design readings. I love doing readings and connecting with people. That day, I told Alexis, my meeting is at this time. The meeting was not at my house. I usually invite people to come to my house or to the community, and we do our session there. But this client asked me to go to her. So I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. We had a car. The appointment was at 1. So I planned to leave at 1:45 so I could get there on time, be ready. I don't like to be late. I hate being late. I don't care if it's like something that's not reflective of me. Like if it's for a show, no, I take it back. I hate being late, okay? Alexis will tell you this. If she heard me say, actually, I don't really mind if it's for this, she would be like, bitch, no. I am always on her ass about leaving on time. There's the odd time that I'm not a hard ass around being on time, but usually I am. I like to be on time. I like to leave in time. I like to show up calmly and not rushed, okay? So same day, we were leaving to go to Holbox, which is this little island. It's about 2 hours from Cancun. You have to take a ferry to get there as well. Super cute. So we were leaving for Holbox later that day. So I had packed everything up, all of the things that I could pack up prior to going to my session so that from my session we could just leave. Alexis needed to get an adjustment that day. So she leaves, I think she leaves around 12. And normally the chiropractor is really fast. He's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes done. As soon as she left, I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if she's going to make it back in time, but I was like, you know what? Let it go. Don't say anything. I don't want to come off as a control freak. Just let things be. So she goes. It is now 1:45. I'm like, I have to leave. Where's my wife? So I'm packing up my stuff. I'm all ready. I'm all cute in my little outfit with my essential oils. I've got my things, my iPad, my book, all of the stuff that I take with me to a human design session. I have my water. And I'm standing by the door waiting, and she's not there. So I call her twice, doesn't pick up. I'm like, fuck. She is still in session and she has no idea what time it is. I felt so angry at that time too. I was so frustrated. I decide, you know what? She might be on her way back. I'm just going to walk toward the exit of our community or the entrance, and I'm going to walk. I'm going to see if she's there. And if she's there, then great. We can swap. I'll take the car and go. So I'm walking. She's not there. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to walk to this client's house. I could have walked had I had enough time. Like if I knew that I was going to walk, I could have walked. So I'm walking out of the community. This random guy, I've never seen him before. He pulls up beside me and he's like, hey, do you need a ride? And normally I would never get into someone's car, but I was like, you know what? Yes, I do need a ride. Where are you going? And he's like, oh, I'm going to El Centro or something like that. And I was like, perfect. Drop me off at BS2, this street, and let's do it. So I get into his car, and it was only like 2 minutes late for my meeting. And the reason I say this is because it was such a divine day. You know what I mean? I was so upset at the fact that Alexis wasn't back on time, and I could have just sat there and I could have just stayed upset, but I had a nudge, like my gut was telling me just walk to the exit, walk to the exit. And so I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I've got nothing to lose at this point. I'm already late. I might just have to tell my client I'm going to be like 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, whatever. And that guy showed up, and then I show up to my client's place and she wasn't even ready anyway. All of that to say, I guess, is that everything's always unfolding in divine timing. And no matter what, we are supported. I think sometimes we get so lost in this is what this looks like, and this has to happen this way in order for this to happen. And the world, the universe is so beyond that. My experience has been that it's very much our upbringing, right? Like, we get taught, okay, if you focus on this, this can happen. And the step by step and the following the rules and the this and the that. And ultimately, I think these ways of thinking pull us away from who we really are. Like, at the end of the day, we're all connected. I guess this is the message, is that we're all connected, right? And I just want to offer that you lean into that this year, because if there's something that's on your heart to do, like, I know a lot of people and a lot of my clients will come to me and they're like, Lauren, I just want to do this. I'm like, okay, why aren't we doing that? Like, what's holding you back, you know? And they'll come up with excuses or reasons like, oh, well, I got to do this first, or I got to do this first. And there's no rule book, you guys. Like, there's no book written anywhere. There's no plan anywhere that says that if you don't follow these steps, you're not going to XYZ. It's so much bigger than that. And, you know, the one thing that is really front and center for me as I enter this year is my human design, because I'm so in tune with who I am, and I can be really good at being present with myself and moving where I need to move to fulfill whatever mission that I'm here to fulfill. There are times, though, that other people's energy will influence me, and I allow it to influence me, and I don't stay true to myself because I'm open to being influenced. And what I'm learning about the centers and just human design in general is, like, you can know your human design chart, you can know how you're designed to function, but if you're not working with your energy on a day-to-day basis, I can guarantee you somewhere along the way this year, you're going to get pulled off track. So that's what I'm really practicing right now. You know, I set up my own routine and schedule and just really letting go of pressure. Like, last year, I just felt so much pressure to be productive and make something of myself and all of this stuff. And what I'm finding after giving myself the time to take off and just completely disconnect from pressure, from what I should do, what I think I need to do, and just focus inward, has really just reminded me of what brings me joy and what re-energizes me as a leader. It's been so impactful to the start of my year, because now, instead of feeling pressured, I'm taking my time in the morning and I feel so much better. I feel so good. I just feel so much more connected to myself. And so the whole purpose of me sharing this with you is that we live in a world that's very hustle and bustle, and it's so easy to get pulled away from what matters most to us. And for me, those are like my practices. It's my meditation time, it's my yoga time. I really need to be in my body. I really need to clear my mind so that I'm not allowing things like shiny object syndrome to pull my attention. You know, there were days last year where, and this is what derailed me toward the end of the year, there were days where I was so certain that I was going to launch a program, and I would scroll social media and see something, and I would be like, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Maybe I should focus over here. And it's that habit that is keeping you from experiencing the results that you want to experience. When I've had my biggest months yet, it is when I have gone all in on my trust and faith in myself and my idea and whatever it was that I created, right? Let's say I'm launching a new program. My biggest months came because I went full force, full belief, full faith into that. It doesn't work if you half-ass it. I've done a lot of half-ass launches, whether it's because I didn't believe in them or because I didn't have the energy to follow through. whatever the reasoning was. It's been usually one of those two. Or another one that I love is because I created something that I thought would make money and allow me to help more people versus something that I genuinely wanted to create. So all of that to say, this year we are prioritizing self-care. We are prioritizing connection with self. And if you are in a space right now where you feel stressed, you feel pressure, you feel like you've just been running, I implore you to block a week if you can. And if it's not a week, maybe it's 30 minutes every morning. Maybe you get up 30 minutes earlier. I don't know how it would look for you, but set that intention, right? Set the intention to take time for yourself. It doesn't really matter what you do. What matters is how you feel about what you do, okay? So I hope that was helpful. Now that we've caught up on all the things, I want to talk to you about the 3 things that I looked at to plan my 2025. These are only 3 things that I want to cover because if I go into all 7 things, it's going to take a lot longer. I'm going to cover the 3 things that I think are most important. But if you DM me on Instagram or keep your eyes on my feed, I will be releasing the 7 tips to create a fail-proof business goal plan in 2025, and you definitely want to look at that because it's going to walk you through step by step. So the first thing I want to start out with, and this is not part of the main 3 points, but I want to just mention that having gratitude for where you have taken your life and business and for what you do have is essential to come into this exercise and make the most of it. When you come from a lack mentality, whether it's like, I don't have enough this, I need more of this, I haven't achieved this, you're going to continue to create more chaos, more overwhelm, more feelings of lack in your life. You're going to focus on looking for problems instead of finding solutions and instead of holding the vision for what you want and allowing opportunities to come to you. Okay, so when you come from a place of lack, you're going to notice that you are more in a state of fight or flight, that you are more in a state of pushing, or you'll be in complete hopelessness and you won't take any action at all. Versus when you're in a feeling of gratitude, you're going to notice that not only energetically you feel more expanded, but you're also going to magnetize solutions to you that match your vision. This is the law of vibration, law of attraction. Everything that exists in this world has a frequency or a vibration, and like attracts like, right? So whatever you're putting out, you're going to get back. So just keep that in mind as you reflect on 2024 and as you plan for 2025, okay? If you're listening to the podcast, I'm showing my vision board right now. I'm not done with it yet, but I created a vision for myself for this year. And I also created project boards that are on my wall over there. And these have things that I really want to focus on and hone this year. Honestly, they've been on my to-do list forever, but I'm like, we got to get it done this year. So what I've actually done is I've carved out, because sometimes when a project feels too big, you don't really know where to start and you kind of just putter, whatever. And so what I did was I actually mapped out steps to get me going. I've really noticed that for me as a manifesting generator, I need things to respond to. I need things to get me going. So if I come into work one day and I'm completely blank, I'm like, I don't know where to start. Instead of spending time checking my email, checking Instagram, checking Facebook, and getting lost down rabbit holes, I have these things. These are almost like my social media replacements that I can look at and remember, like, oh, this is what you set out to do. This is what you're going to focus on today. Otherwise, we end up wasting so much time. And I see this happen a lot in entrepreneurs where they're not disciplined with their time and they end up wasting a lot of time consuming other people's content over getting shit done in their business. So the first thing that I identified were my cycles, okay? This is number 1 because it was so bad last year. I noticed that in Mexico, every summer, I hadn't really noticed this before becoming an entrepreneur just because I think when you have a job, you just kind of go with things and you don't really question things as much. But as an entrepreneur, I really noticed that my productivity in the summertime went down and my level of exhaustion went up. and it was harder to motivate myself. Last year, moving to Montreal, I was like, hey, maybe it was a Mexico thing. Maybe Mexico did that to me. And here's why. There's valid reasoning behind it. In Mexico, it is so hot in summer. It is 38 Celsius with humidity. You cannot leave your house without dripping sweat. It's really hot. I don't even want to go to the beach in the summertime because it's that hot. That's how crazy hot it is. And everyone over in Canada, you're probably like, that's crazy. I would go to the beach in 38-degree weather. Getting into the ocean doesn't even satisfy you because the ocean's hot. Anyway, I thought maybe it was a Mexico thing. So this year, I'm like, great, I'm in Montreal. I live in the city now. I can source the energy and I can push myself to go through summer. So I didn't plan very well. I experienced the worst depression I have ever experienced in my life. Before last summer, I didn't really identify as someone with depression. I would have bad days, but this carried on for like weeks/months. Like I probably should have been a little more concerned for my well-being. I focused on self-care as much as I could, but I was in a really bad mental state. So the reason that number one is looking at my inner cycles and seasons is because every single year in the summertime, I inevitably hit that slump and I try to push through it. And the more I try to push, the more depressed I get. This year, we're doing things differently. So before making any plans, I looked at what are the seasons and cycles that I know for myself are problems or challenges. Just like nature, we are creatures that also have cycles, particularly women. Men's cycles are 24 hours, women's cycles are 28 days. The 9-to-5 workday works really well for men because their testosterone peaks in the morning and dips after 4 or 5 o'clock. It's perfect. For women, it's different. Ours peaks and dips over a 28-day span. So that's why there are a couple days a month where you feel super jazzed, super energized, super productive. You can freaking accomplish whatever you set your mind to, versus other days where you feel like you just want to rot in bed. We have these cycles, and I think that for me particularly, this is super important because this is just like, I'm a very observational person. What I see happen in the corporate world, in our traditional world, is that women are running themselves into the ground, pushing, and then they get sick and have all of these ailments and doctor's appointments. Just this past summer, Alexis, we had to go take her to the hospital because she was stressed. Like, she didn't know she was stressed, but she had issues. And now looking at her human design, we could see why she had those issues. And it happens for her. Like, this is, again, observational. I track patterns. I track cycles. This is something that's happened every single year for her. Every single year when she hits a stage of stress as a projector, she experiences the same issues in her body. And that's because she's not designed to follow such a workhorse type energy. She needs rest. She needs to detach from that sacral energy. Everyone's different. Even amongst like women, we're different. But I think the more that you can get to know your cycles and seasons, the easier it's going to be to not just plan your year, but also achieve the goals that you set for yourself. We can be a little bit more realistic. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, to chase success at the expense of your own mental health, mental well-being, physical well-being. This year, if there's only one thing that you do, let me invite you to track your cycles and your seasons. Cycles would be your 28-day cycle. Day 1 starts when you're menstruating. You can download an app. I like to use Stardust to track my cycle. Day 1 is when you're menstruating, then you go into the follicular phase and ovulation. Ovulation's when you have the most energy. Then you're 2 weeks pretty much in luteal phase, and that's when your energy starts to dip. Now, it's not to say that you can't accomplish anything. I'm in my luteal phase right now, and I've accomplished a lot in the last couple days. It's to shift how you work with yourself. Make sure that you're getting everything that you need to have a successful day, to accomplish everything that you need to accomplish. And when you're feeling really tired, just like giving yourself that permission to rest. I have compared myself a lot to my male counterparts in the past, and it's just simply not fair because we have completely different bodies, we have different hormone cycles, we have different energy levels. And I think the more that women can stand in their awareness of their cycles, the more successful they will be. Not just successful, but healthy, right? Because at the end of the day, as a business owner, my health is my investment. It's my currency. If I'm not healthy, I can't work. So all of that to say is we have cycles. Before tracking this information about myself, I would get so disheartened. I would be so upset when I would wake up one day and have zero to give. And I'm the kind of person that if I don't have the energy, I can't just sit here and pretend to have the energy. I'm not the type of person that can just push through. So instead, what I've done is I've adjusted my expectations of myself. If a day comes where I wake up and I'm exhausted, now I know why. Instead of being super hard on myself, I can allow myself to go through that without judging myself. If you're getting anything from this, it's to give yourself that grace that you can go through challenging days or low energy days. As a high achiever, I have expected myself to perform at 80 to 100% every day because that's just who I am. The reality is that it's not possible. So we're tracking monthly cycles and annual cycles, just like seasons. I have noticed for me that I go through fall, winter, spring, and summer in my life, but it's actually backwards to what you would think. I've noticed that July, August, maybe August, September, that's my winter. October, November, December, spring, things are starting to bloom again for me, starting to get excited, starting to get more energized. Starting January into maybe February, March, April, those are my summer days. And then my fall is pretty much up until July, August mark. I can go hard until July. It's August that I dip every year. Knowing this year, instead of planning to launch something and making all of my money in the summertime, we're not doing that. So the first thing to look at, know your monthly cycle and your annual cycles. Okay, second thing is we're going to reflect on 2024. Make note of your wins, identify the obstacles that held you back in 2024 and that will inevitably come up again in 2025. We are creatures of habit. So many times we're like, oh, we went through this one thing, that sucked, new year, everything's fine. The reality is patterns repeat. You're going to go through the same challenges over and over and over again. So instead of hoping and wishing that they're gone and that you've overcome them and so you'll never have to deal with them again, what is more helpful and realistic is to create a fail-proof plan so that when you do hit those challenges, you know when they're happening. And you also are set up to navigate those challenges with more ease. So this would look like identifying any weaknesses within yourself. So for me, with an open crown and an open ajna, I am super susceptible to other people's ideas, other people's opinions, other people's advice, and other people's mental pressure. In the office I work in, I know one of the other human design types, and they have a defined, I can't remember if they have a defined crown and ajna or just a defined ajna. Nonetheless, I feel their mental pressure. So super important to be aware of your own energetics and of the energy you're sharing space with others. It's not always possible, but if at least you know your own, you can kind of work on cleansing, clearing, and all of that jazz. Now, being aware that I'm susceptible to all of those things, I can put a plan in place to help me navigate. When I notice that my head is feeling pressured, or when I notice that I'm overthinking, or when I notice that I'm questioning myself or my decisions, right? Okay, Lauren, you know that these are open areas. Where is this coming from, first of all? And second of all, how can we come back to a neutral space, observe the thoughts rather than identify with them? So all of that to say, make note of the wins, which is super important because as high achievers, we often fail to recognize the progress that we've made. And we only focus on what's left to do and how far we are from our vision. Not only is this super energetically draining, it's also teaching your mind to close off. We got to train our minds to open up to opportunities and possibilities. Our mind is actually wired to look for threats because, evolutionarily speaking, the brain is wired in all mammals to look for signs of danger. That is why our mind focuses so much on the negative, when what we really need to be focusing on is positives and looking for opportunities and possibilities, because our inner world becomes what we focus on. So if you're constantly looking for what's not going well, what's failing, what's bad, then you are going to create a world and feel all of those things. When you start to notice what's going well and you start to open up your mind to start thinking more positively and express gratitude and notice all of the things in your life that you can be so grateful for and that you are so blessed to have, that is where your mind will start to pick up on other things that match that frequency. If you're interested in knowing what my top wins were, just before I get into the other things, my top wins for 2024 were I leveraged partnerships and collaborations, which brought in new clients out of nowhere. I had an almost 20K quarter. This was really big for me. I also facilitated my first in-person 3-day coach training. I've been facilitating the same coach training online for years, but doing it in person was absolutely amazing. We moved into our apartment in Montreal, got our home ready in Mexico to rent, and welcomed our first few renters this year. I dealt with, navigated, and overcame a lot of anxiety and depression this past summer. That is a huge win. Now, having had the space to kind of disconnect and recenter with myself, I no longer feel anxious. It started back when we were living with my family for 2 months. I just could not kick this feeling of anxiety. And it lasted on and off up until around December. Going back to Mexico and then coming back and reconnecting with myself was really huge. So I'm very proud of that. And then we spent a ton of time with family. I got to travel to some really big family milestone events this year. So we had my mom's 60th at the beginning of the year, my uncle's 70th, my cousin's 40th. I got to meet my new nephew, and I got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents, which I'm super, super grateful for because I haven't really been around as much. When I was living in Mexico, I didn't get to come and visit as often. So it's been really amazing to spend time with my family. Here are some questions that you can ask yourself to support your reflections. First question is, what did I accomplish in 2024? What went well? What were my greatest obstacles or setbacks? And that's for 2024. So what did I accomplish? What went well? What were my greatest obstacles or setbacks? You can even ask yourself what you're most proud of. So then for 2025, we are going to look at, what do I want to be known for? What am I ready to call in this year? What needs to be resolved to do this? What do I want my year to look like in 2025? What needs to be fixed, looked at, worked on to support me in bringing this vision to reality? And most importantly, what is my mission? I worked on my vision and mission years ago, and for whatever reason, the last couple of years, I've kind of disconnected or forgotten or haven't really redefined my missions. Having a mission statement is really helpful because it guides the reason behind everything that you're doing. If your mission is just to make money in your business, you're going to wake up one day and not feel motivated to do it, and you're going to have no reason to show up, no reason to work toward that mission. However, if you create a mission that is focused on contribution, focused on impact, focused on the world or helping people or something like environmental change, right? Something that impacts the greater good, then that is where you can source energy when you're feeling at your lowest. So those are some questions that I recommend. We dive deeper into this and talk about creating a fail-proof plan inside of my workshop called Vision. It is a human design visioning and goal setting workshop where I'm going to teach you how to understand certain elements of your human design chart and craft goals in a way that you're designed to craft them and achieve them. The reason being is because I spent years doing SMART goals. I spent years setting these really big goals for myself and trying to achieve them in a way that looked like other people's way, in a way that was proven, but for somebody else. And I spent a lot of time banging my head against the wall because I just got so frustrated with how I was doing things and it just didn't work well for me. My energy felt super restricted. And so I ended up feeling really frustrated. When I finally learned about human design and actually applied that to goal setting, things really opened up for me. So check out the link in the show notes to sign up for that. We're not done yet though. So the last thing that I looked at to craft my vision for 2025 is my human design. I've really been diving into the centers. I don't think that the centers are talked about enough. The centers govern where we influence other people, but also where other people influence us. And when we're not aware of our energy, when we're not aware of these centers, it can become really debilitating. For example, that mental pressure can become debilitating. Headaches, migraines, confusion, overwhelm, okay? Emotional center, depression, anxiety. I have an open emotional center, and what I didn't mention about my summer when I told you I went through the worst depression of my life is that a couple weeks after, I had mentioned it to Alexis and she was like, oh, okay. But she disclosed to me a couple weeks later that she was also feeling really depressed, and she has a defined emotional center. She's meant to feel those ups and downs. I'm not meant to take that in. And so knowing that she was going through a hard time really helped me to understand where I was actually maybe identifying with that energy instead of allowing it to pass through my experience, if that makes sense. Understanding how to work with the energetics of your chart is so, so important to free yourself from these things. The open centers are usually where we feel the most challenged, where our pain usually lies. For me, it's that open emotional center where I get really influenced. With the undefined heart center too. Oh my God, that one's a doozy. Anyway, for years, I struggled to reach my goals and stick to the plans that I created for myself because they were all based on traditional goal setting methods, productivity hacks, and all of that. Knowing my human design really helped me to understand why those were not working for me, why they were incorrect for my energetic makeup. It took a while, but I eventually got to the place where I just accepted the way that I'm created, the way that I came here to be, and realized the gift in being what I came here to be rather than pushing myself to be something else. I learned that just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, and that's okay. Just as an example, as a manifesting generator, I used to focus so much on that advice of focus on one thing at a time. Do one thing at a time, finish it, complete it, and do the step-by-steps and then the launch. I would get so bored. I would get so lost. I would get so confused in all of these templates and structures. It was really overwhelming. And for a while, I really doubted my ability to be an entrepreneur. I was like, can I even do this? I'm getting overwhelmed. I can't even finish this template or this launch plan. I'm getting so overwhelmed that I don't think this is for me. When I gave myself permission to let go of those proven methods and discover a process that would work well for me, that's when things, like I said earlier, really changed for me. That's when launching actually became successful for me. That's when I honestly just felt different. I felt so in my power. We talk about who we are, but I noticed that a lot of people kind of reject themselves still. They either reject themselves by still trying to fit a mold that they're not meant to be in, or they know their chart, but they're not working with it actively. So they end up still getting swept away into other people's things. It can present a lot of challenges. It presents a lot of personal challenges and frustration. So if you've ever felt like you are the black sheep of entrepreneurship and that other people's strategies just don't seem to work for you the way that they promised. Now, there is one thing that I'll address here is that a lot of digital product creators do overpromise results. So that is one thing. But there are a lot of quality pieces of work out there. And if we don't customize it to how we came here to be, it will be a struggle to see results with that specific way. Does that make sense? One example I can speak to is the process of writing. I've started writing a book. I have no idea when it's going to come out because I don't always have words to say. That's because of my open ajna. I have a defined throat as a manifesting generator, but my ajna center, my mind, is not connected to my throat. Therefore, I don't necessarily have concrete thoughts or opinions about things. I have more of like this neutral perspective and an open mind, right? So I can take and hold multiple different perspectives at once. That can be a challenge when I feel pressured to, for example, write an email, write my book. Writing the book is not a super priority, so I've allowed that to be its own creation. But for example, when it comes to writing content, a sales page for a launch, sometimes I get stuck because I just can't find the words to say. There are words, like I have the power of my voice, but there's nothing up here sometimes, right? So putting myself in the right environment to allow my energy to flow has been really helpful. There was one morning I came into the office and I wrote 11 pages of this book. I just felt so inspired by whatever was happening. So that's something I'm really focused on this year, is really diving into the energy centers and optimizing, finding ways around things, because I could easily say, oh, I have an undefined mind and a defined throat, therefore I'm not meant to write a book. I could easily say that, but I don't believe in that. I think there are always ways to get your energy flowing, and it's going to look different for everybody. I could read a book on how to write a book and I could get nowhere with it because why? You know why. So those are the top 3 things that I focused on in my visioning and planning for 2025. Now I want to paint a picture for you. I want you to imagine that you wake up in 9 months from now and you are sipping your morning coffee or your morning tea or your morning hot chocolate, whatever you drink. You're making your gratitude list, and all of a sudden you get a tingle in your tummy when you finally realize that you reached the goals that you set for yourself. And you realize that this time it was aligned, it was easy, and it was deeply fulfilling. If you have ever felt like traditional goal setting leaves you feeling more disappointed in yourself than accomplished, then it is time to discover how you're uniquely wired for success. My workshop, Vision, is the human design visioning and goal setting workshop where you are going to say goodbye to cookie cutter goal setting strategies that leave you feeling disappointed in yourself, and you're going to say hello to aligned vision that sets you up for success in a way that feels easy and exciting to you. This workshop is on sale right now. We're going to meet live online, tackle the challenges, tackle your questions, and create a vision for this year and maybe even for the next 5-10 years. So I'm going to drop the link in the show notes. People have absolutely raved about this workshop. I used to run this workshop with my friend Carolina, and I have tweaked it because we're not running it together anymore. You can do it self-guided or come and be with us in the live workshop. It's on sale right now, only for 2 weeks. It's a really great program, and you're going to use it, like not just this year. You can use it again next year and the year after that. If you have access to it already, you can go through it again. If you want to attend the live workshop, though, you do need to purchase the workshop. Send me a message if you have any questions about that. This is your year to move forward with intention and alignment, and I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for being here. If you liked this episode today, please share it with a friend or a colleague or a client. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you implementing the things that I talk about here because they're truly life-changing, and I am just so grateful for my community and my audience and my listeners. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. If you like what you heard, I would love it if you left a review. If you like my vibe, come and hang with me in my Facebook or Telegram group. I'll drop the link to my email list below where you can get instant access. Make sure you check the show notes for any other links that I mentioned today. And until next time, I'm sending you waves of abundance.